screenwriting for 15 years now. And I started off as a journalist based in Buenos Aires.
That's exotic.
For the Associated Press. And then I moved to Los Angeles and started working for Roger Corman and then Dino De Laurentiis. And then after that, I decided to start writing stories. And I had heard years ago there was a rumor that two people had been robbing mafia social clubs, and it was a New York City rumor, kind of an urban myth. And then about 8 years ago, I saw in the newspaper a story buried on page A27 of the New York Times that there was going to be a trial for the murder of these two kids.
Wow.
So I flew to New York City and I covered the trial like a journalist. I went to the trial every day for the mafia people who had murdered Rosemarie DeToma and Thomas Uva. And like Michael Pitt's character in the movie, every day I would go and I would write down the addresses of these mafia social clubs, and then after the trial I would go to these mafia social clubs. And when I first went to the mafia social club, I was expecting to see Al Pacino in The Godfather. I am a huge fan of The Godfather and Goodfellas. I love those movies. But when I went to the mafia social clubs, I saw fluorescent lights, cottage cheese ceilings, and a bunch of toothless old guys. And I thought, this is nothing like the movies. And that was when I knew we had a film, because it was something you had never seen before. It was completely original. It was completely fresh. It wasn't just rehashing the great old classics. It was something you hadn't seen before. And so that was the exciting moment for me, was when we had something totally new, totally fresh visually.
So you did heavy, that's a lot of research.
Yes.
And you were completely immersed.
Yes.
And how long did it take you from the time that the trial started
Mm-hmm.
until you visited all those clubs, and then you sat down and said, I'm going to start writing? How long was that? I mean, the research process.
Well, the research process was about 2 weeks. So the trial lasted about 2 weeks. So I would go to the trial every day. I would go to the clubs at night. One of the times, my final club I went to, I was going back to Kennedy Airport. And one of the clubs, the first club they hit was in Ozone Park, and that's right on the way to Kennedy Airport. So I had my black wheelie suitcase in one hand, and my father's a baker, and he had handed me a cheesecake to bring back with him. So I had the cheesecake in one hand, the wheelie suitcase in the other, and I knocked on the door and I went in, and everyone just turned and looked at me and were like, what are you doing here? And there was this moment when I thought to myself, this is a really, really bad idea. But upstairs, New York City had gone real estate crazy. They were turning the upstairs of the Mafia Social Club into apartments. So I said, well, actually, I'm interested in renting one of the apartments. And then everyone relaxed, and they said, oh, those apartments upstairs, they're going to want a big deposit, like your life. And so that was my moment in that club. I left and went out to Kennedy Airport.
Amazing. And so you took the initiative to write the screenplay. It's not like you were commissioned.
No, I wrote this on spec.
And how long did it take before it was picked up? Like a lifetime?
Oh,
What
gosh.
it usually takes.
It took, I've been told this is fast, so 7 years.
Kind of fast.
Kind of fast. It's fast when it's not your life. So I started writing literally on the plane ride home. And I just wrote down all my impressions.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the scenes that you see in the movie really did happen to me. So Michael Pitt going into the clubs, all of that happened to me. Michael Pitt taking the notes, Michael Pitt writing down the addresses of the mafia social clubs, Michael Pitt in the audience. All of those are real experiences, which is why it's fresh, which is why it doesn't feel like other mafia movies.
How much rewriting and how involved were you in rewriting? And
The great thing was I was involved literally from beginning to end.
Wow.
I was on set every day. I was the only writer.
You're lucky.
I was very lucky. Listen,
almost never hear that.
you never hear that, and listen, I can't say enough great things about Raymond De Felitta, and I can't say enough great things about Andy Garcia and Michael Pitt, and they all brought different elements to it. And when you're lucky enough to work with someone like
Great talent.
yeah, when
Yeah.
you're working with Andy
Yeah.
Garcia, who's a screen
just-
legend, and
yeah.
he says he wants to reinvent the Mafia Don, you're like, oh my gosh, how lucky was I to
Yeah.
work with him? And then the talent was amazing. Michael Pitt was amazing. Nina Arianda was amazing. And then Raymond De Felitta, who's this just brilliant, gifted visual artist who's explored every aspect of New York City, every borough. So to have this be his Queens movie, as we joke, it's great. So I went to set every day with Raymond and did all the rewrites, and it was just a great experience.
And before that, you did a season, right? If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, for Star Trek.
Yes, I wrote on Star Trek.
Right.
I've written TV movies. I wrote for my first job, as I said, was writing for Roger Corman. On a Friday afternoon, Roger said to me, "How'd you?" He goes, and when you do Roger Corman, you have to do the Roger Corman voice. "Jonathan, would you like to go home early this weekend?" I was like, "Yes, that would be great." And then he said, "Fine, you can go home early. On Monday, I would like you to have a screenplay for me." And so I had 4 actors who spoke English. We were going to be one of the first films shot in the Soviet Union. And in a Roger Corman film, I predicted the downfall of the Soviet Union. And we wrote a film over the weekend, and that got shot. So that was the first film I ever wrote.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now that TV is so dynamic,
Yes.
so have you fantasized about having this as a TV series?
We've talked
Don't
about
say you
it.
haven't.
Yeah, no, we absolutely. Listen, the great thing is when you get a group of actors this talented, you
Yeah.
want to have your repertory company. You want your stock company.
Right.
And so to have a stock company of Andy Garcia and Michael Pitt and Michael Rispoli, I mean, these are just amazing actors. Frank Whaley, Nina Arianda, these are just huge talents. And I think the thrill for a writer is that, wow, you have this repertory company of actors, and it's very much like a Shakespearean company, or it's very much like I mean, it's like Dickens. I mean, that's the thing. You know, Dickens was writing serial stories, and so that's why I think TV is so exciting right now for writers in particular. So yes, I would love to do it. Rob the Mob, the series. Right now, I'm writing a screenplay for Universal, also inspired by a true story. It's called Wild Blue, and it's inspired by the story of an LAPD detective who ended up murdering her old boyfriend's wife. So it's a Fatal Attraction story, but the Glenn Close character is an LAPD cop. So what if your ex-girlfriend carried a gun?
Oh, pass. Wow, that's pretty cool. Are there any stars attached to it?
No,
Not that you could tell us.
not
but
right
no.
now. Not right
Okay.
now. No.
But here's the thing: when you write, do you have? I mean, it's like screenwriting 101, what not to do.
Yes.
But do you envision particular types of, particular actors? Yes, but
I kind of try and envision the characters, and then what was so exciting was watching Michael Pitt and Nina bring these two to life, and watching Andy Garcia bring them to life, and they just excited me. So, you know, we weren't doing a documentary, we weren't doing a docudrama, we were doing a film. And it's a love story, it's a comedy. This is a very, very funny movie. It's a laugh out loud funny movie. So we were never, you know, it was inspired by a true story, but we were never trying to do a film.
Reenactment.
Yeah, this is not a TV movie where, and I think what's great is when you look at what Shakespeare did, Richard III is not a documentary, it's trying to get at bigger truths. And I think we were able to do that. And I think, again, when you have a director like Raymond De Felitta, you're able to get to those bigger kind of truths that I think are more interesting.
Yeah.
You know, life is never quite as Shakespearean as you want it to be.
well, sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is.
You have a distributor, Millennium.
Yes,
Fabulous.
we're very lucky. They've
Yeah.
been doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, the trick is just to make sure people see it in theaters and just get that communal experience. So it's great.
Listen, best of luck.
Thank you so much. Great
Absolutely
meeting you.
Great talking to you.